Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, Melissa? Thanks for
Good.
having
Nice to
me.
have you here.
The
Yeah,
invite.
we had a few technical issues before we started, but now I think we're all good to go. So first of all, just I want to say thank you for joining us here on the platform. And um, as we get started, I'm just going to introduce you to everybody who's viewing and watching. Anybody who is viewing and watching, you can leave comments on Facebook. I think right now they're restricted on YouTube. I'll change that for our future broadcast. But if you have any comments or questions, comment in our Facebook live stream and we'll see them and ask them at the end of the stream or as we incorporate them as we go along. So to introduce Chris, Christopher Jaramillo is running for a seat on the Norristown Area School District Board of School Directors. Chris has been a resident in the greater Norristown area for over a decade and is an executive board member for the Hispanic Heritage Association and the Greater Norristown NAACP. His work in educational advocacy is heavily rooted in a local context and is evident by his continued involvement in many organizations focused on racial and social justice. He currently holds a Master of Science in Education from the Graduate School of Education at the University of Pennsylvania and has served as an educator in the K through 12 and collegiate settings. Okay, so again, thank you for joining us, Chris. So my first question is a pretty standard question, which is just what is your motivation for running for the school board director position?
Well, first and foremost, let me thank you, Melissa, for hosting these youth forums. I find it very imperative for the youth to have some sort of outlet to voice the issues, their concerns that are current today. So, what kind of is my motivation, my drive in running for office? Um, it's There's a couple different layers to it, and I kind of want to break it down. First, as a young Latino male, I felt like my identity and background wasn't really valued in the school district that I had particularly attended. I didn't really relate to the majority of my teachers in many capacities, nor were they competent, I felt like, enough to make the learning material engaging or even relating it to my real world experiences. So it wasn't until college where I would then become exposed to educators who looked like me, who shared similar cultural experiences to that of myself. Um, Fast forward a little bit to my own experience as an educator after college. Um, in the classroom, that further drove me to um, wanting to explore serving in a public capacity and in a larger capacity. Although my impact could be profound in the classroom setting itself, the impact was on a small number of scholars. So, as a school board director, there's potential for having a broader impact as a director because I'm serving not only the scholars and their parents, I'm also serving other stakeholders in the community. For example, community organizations and other educators. So I think the that's one particular drive. I also want to break down some of the stats for the district itself. So Norristown Area School District is 43% Latinx and about 33% African American and or Black in terms of the demographics of the school district itself. So I, as a person of color, witnessing the lack of diversity in a myriad of spaces that I've been a part of, such as my own schooling, such as my own workplace, things like that. Um, I had no one I could really relate to or someone who could understand my struggles. So I feel like the Latinx community really needs representation on the school board, being that we are the majority demographic in the school district. So that's another driving factor. So I guess to sum it up, is my childhood experience, my professional experience, and then my community that really drove me to run for office.
Mhm. I talked to Melanie Aurora last night, who is running for city council in Lenexa, and I asked her the question about how her kind of the intersection of her various identities impacted her campaign. And she gave a really thoughtful answer, and she also said that she thought it provided a lot of strength because people are looking for people to represent them who look like them, who can represent their interests based on kind of their background. And I think this is also a good question for you because she said at times, while it had all these strengths, there were ways that people viewed her based on her kind of different identity. And I wonder if that's been a case for you at all in your campaign, or in interacting in the community at all?
Repeat that first portion for me. I think I may have lost you.
Yeah, I wonder if I think this is a really good strength, having people with more diverse backgrounds in public office, and this can be a strength in campaigns. But I think that there can also be challenges with that. The challenge of having an identity that may be different than those who make up a current city council or school board directors. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. The intersection of my identity has been a strength in some areas, and it has also, I think, I've experienced more challenges with my particular intersection though, and some of those challenges, for example. I have experienced and still continue to experience is a perception from like older individuals in power, somewhere under the impression that young individuals aren't fit to serve because we either lack experience or don't have much to contribute to the conversation, or whatever office we're seeking. So from that experience, I think, me personally, I view it as, this is my educator lens. I view it as those individuals taking a sort of deficit mindset or a deficit lens. So I, on the other hand, value different ways of thinking, and conversing with many other individuals who are either millennials or Gen Z, that sort of thing. Um, I feel as though we have a different way of thinking when it comes to solutions to a problem. And just because the process of getting to a solution is different doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad. So I think these different ways of thinking about solutions to current day issues need to have a space so that way they can be discussed and valued. Another challenge I've faced is exactly at the intersection of being young and Latino. As a person of color, I witnessed mistreatment in the workplace for people of color. A drastic example of that was when I was offered a position in corporate America shortly after college. And shortly after starting that position, I began to see how Black, Indigenous, and people of color identifying employees, such as myself, were treated in my specific department in that organization. So we would be on the receiving end of threatening behavior and microaggressions from our supervisors in regards to our performance. I recall one young lady who identified as Black and LGBTQ as receiving extremely inappropriate gestures by the supervisor themselves. So I felt the need to speak up on behalf of my BIPOC employees and to unionize the department. So again, that's a lens of like not really valuing the cultural capital, the social capital, the different types of capital that BIPOC individuals can offer to a space, to an organization, to different entities, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. And what do you do to kind of counteract those when you experience things like that? Or what advice could you give to young people who might be interested in running and who is a person of color who might be afraid of counteractions they might encounter?
Personally, at least within the education space, I find it valuable to take some solace into what we call affinity spaces. That's a term that we use in education, where it's essentially a space where we can gather with individuals who either identify similarly to us or have the same experiences as us, that sort of thing. For example, there could be an affinity space for young Latinx individuals in their workplace. So they may have like a little breakout session towards the end of their shift, sort of thing, and kind of talk about the highs and lows for the day, some of the challenges. If some of the more seasoned employees in that workspace have experienced those same challenges, what have they done to kind of overcome it? Just have that sort of dialogue with other individuals who, again, identify with you. I also find it beneficial for me personally to keep in mind the purpose of what I do and why. To be quite frank, I'm not going to please every single constituent. There's a lot of hot button topics that individuals are bringing to the forefront, especially at school board meetings. If you've been keeping up with some of the news from right-wing counterparts and extreme conservative views and values, that just frankly aren't based in science, fact, truth. So with that being said, I have to realize that, and at the end of the day, just remember what I'm doing this for, and that's for my community, to give them a voice and representation. So again, I'm not going to please every single constituent. I have to make sure that my community is being advocated for.
Mm-hmm. This is something that I've noticed a lot in the last few months, especially last, I suppose, since the start of the year, is this politicalization of like school board meetings and campaigns and races for local school boards. And I have never noticed that before in my life, but it could be that I'm more politically engaged than I was earlier in my life. But I wonder if perhaps you've noticed that there's been an increase in kind of this politicalization or intense conversations occurring during school board meetings or around surrounding school board races than you might have noticed in the past.
Yes, most definitely. So my school district hasn't quite yet received the full brunt of that particular polarization, but neighboring school districts have. Specifically, there's a school district that had requested my presence and some of the individuals who are part of an organization that I'm associated with to kind of support and show up to the school board meeting to advocate on behalf of their school board directors, and kind of highlight the positives that they've brought to the school district, the direction that the school district is going, rather than some of the false narratives that opposing views have discussed at that particular school board meeting and previous school board meetings at that particular school district. So yes, that I am seeing a larger wave of this polarization throughout districts in my particular county, to the point which they are reaching out to one of my organizations to lend some support.
Mm-hmm. You're, I think, the only guest we have in this series who's running for school board of directors or a school board. I'm not sure which term is the right one. Is it school board or school board of directors?
School board director, school board is it's interchangeable.
Yeah, okay. But you're the only guest in the series who's running for the school board. And I wonder if you see that campaign operating differently than a campaign for, say, city council or state rep would be run.
Um, there are some slight differences. There are some similarities as well. So specifically with my particular school board campaign, so the district that I'm serving, we represent two townships and one municipality. So the district encompasses Norristown, which is the municipality, and then East Norriton and West Norriton, which are the townships just outside of Norristown. So three areas more or less with varying demographics, um, compared to that of a council person, which may be one particular municipality and or one particular township. For example, Norristown itself has a council, and they are they essentially oversee the land development of Norristown, while school board, on the other hand, will deal with the governing bodies of Norristown, East Norriton, and West Norriton, and specifically we deal with like the property taxes and how the school district is governed. So there are some slight differences, some slight similarities. I tend to I tend to utilize the similarities more than the differences, especially being that in my particular case, Norristown Council, they represent a specific population in Norristown, which we also represent as school board directors. So I find it imperative that the school board needs to work with the council in order to make decisions that will have a beneficial, positive impact on the constituents that we share together. And the same thing can be said for the governing body in East Norriton and the governing body in West Norriton.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And um, one of the one of the questions that we got from Facebook that I want to ask now, because I think it's an interesting question, kind of about how your campaign is run, is if you wonder if economics plays a role in how young people are raising fund or getting sponsors for running a campaign. I know that's an especially big challenge for young people who run for office is raising funds, and just some young candidates have other jobs and they can't exactly find the time to run a campaign and have income from a job as well. So do you feel that this is a barrier that young people face? Have you faced it at all in your campaign?
Yes, most definitely. I, as a single father, there's been times where my team of school board candidates that I'm running with, they have planned door knocking, for example, on weekends where I just wasn't able to attend because I'm at home with my son. Um, Fundraising is also a major component to school board specifically. Um, we, how can I say it? So it can only go so far. Being a single parent, working from home, and then shooting out emails to family and friends. That was I was able to get a good amount of funding that way, but at a certain point, it kind of feels like as a candidate, you've kind of exhausted those avenues. Therefore, you need to reach out to spheres of influence that may not be of yours anymore. So you may have to reach out to different networks. You may have to reach out to other elected officials who are well established in their office or well established in their community, and partner with them on different fundraising events, things like that, which again can be very difficult to attend in person as a single parent, as a full time employee, that sort of thing. I also think that COVID has played a big influence as well, being that a lot of venues just don't allow the capacity to have these large fundraisers being held in. Luckily, we we're experiencing a gradual reopening in my state, so that that has been alleviated a slight bit. Um, there's still precautions that we have to take, of course. So um, there's been a lot of challenges in terms of um, campaign fundraising, in terms of being able to meet constituents, door knock, things like that. You kind of have to respect their boundaries if you're trying to gain some voter support, and they don't really want to engage with you at a certain distance. So it's like you have to be cognizant of that as well.
Yeah, and I know that in a lot of these factors, especially if you're a young person running for office, it's good to have outside sources of support or at least role models that you can follow, or gain advice from. Do you feel that in your community, or at least in maybe your state, there's a community of maybe young people who've been able to support each other in these matters? Or have you had any other source of guidance or support?
Um, I can identify a few individuals who have personally driven me to where I am today and have been supportive even up to this point. Individuals who are currently in office in different capacities. For example, a local council person who has been very supportive of me, just like kind of throwing questions at him to find out what he does on a day-to-day basis, and if that's something that would be suitable for me, or where can I best apply my experiences, sort of thing, and what exactly does local government do, and what's their full capacity, that sort of thing. There's also mentors of mine who um, have really pushed me to be a better version of myself, and have seen that, I guess, that spark in me, and want to guide me in the proper direction. And school board was one of the places that they've directed me to. I'd also say another individual, another individual who inspired me and who I viewed as a mentor, is actually an artist, Nas. Nas spoke a lot about like hood politics in his music, and that's something that wasn't really like mainstream. Um, Now you have individuals like J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar, and an even younger generation who are bringing that up to the forefront. And that's also, to me, that was also an important driving factor in where I am today, because again, the representation just isn't there, and it should be there, especially for these communities that have historically been neglected or just haven't been offered a seat at the table. So that Nas is an individual who I look up to as well. And then family, friends who have supported me as well. Um, and of course, the younger generation, my children, who I want them to have a better future. Um, so the that sort of, I guess, community, um, if it wasn't for these individuals having such a profound impact on my life, I most likely would have not been able to pursue running for office, would not have been able to pursue being appointed, and overall, I just would not be here without them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it takes a lot of people, not just the person running the campaign, who's at the face of it. It takes a lot of support behind that. And I hope that in the future, that as more young people step in or make the decision to run for political office, they not only have these mentors and these role models and these, this cushion of support around them, but they can also connect into a youth network for support they might need in how do I run a campaign as a young person? Where can I get finances? Because I'm sure that they have a lot of these questions as they start their campaign, maybe with not a lot of that initial knowledge. Um, that's something I hope can be developed in the future as more and more young people run for office. So, with that being said, I wonder if you can offer any advice to other young people who might be interested in running for office.
Yeah, don't be discouraged. Ask the questions that you need answered. If there's something that you aren't familiar with, a particular structure of governance or specific roles and responsibilities of a governing body, what have you, don't be afraid to ask the questions. Um, Feel free to utilize me as a resource if need be. Someone you can rely and confide in. Identify that individual and um, keep that line of communication open with them. I truly believe that, like, my personal experiences of individuals telling me that I may not have the experience or can't really contribute to the conversation. Um, to me, that's kind of like oh, you're not ready for this. Wait for your time. And if you are hearing that from certain individuals, one, you don't need them in your circle, and two, that that should basically be the point in time where you realize that, okay, it's your time. And if they're telling you it's not your time, it's your time. Go for whatever office you're seeking. Go for whatever endeavor you have selected. Um, and by all means, stay the course. Don't be distracted. Um, but also prioritize your mental health. Prioritize yourself, because this can be a very draining pursuit. It can be it can weigh on you mentally, physically, emotionally. So prioritize your mental health, prioritize your physical health, so that way you can be up to par each and every day when you show up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Before we close out, we're reaching kind of the end of our time here. Before we close out, I wanted to give you the opportunity to, if there's anything that you didn't get a chance to talk about today that you wanted to, or anything about your campaign that you want people to know about, feel free. You can let us know now, or yeah.
Um, let's see. Um, I mean, school board is it's recently taken a more of a public eye, being that there's a lot of hot button topics that individuals are bringing up to the forefront, again, which really aren't based in science, fact, or truth. Um, so it's it could be an office that many individuals don't know much about. Feel free to look into it. Um, I'm more than happy to connect with anyone who's interested in running for school board. There's other offices locally that will have just as major of an impact, where you will most likely be working with individuals from school board, with individuals from council. I do think that in order to push a community forward, we need to avoid the divisiveness, come together and work towards progress. And I'm more than happy to, if anyone's interested in volunteering for my campaign, I'm more than happy to bring you in. I have a little form that you can fill out um, on my website. Feel free to check it out, www.votechrisj.com. I also have a Facebook. Follow my Instagram. Facebook is at VoteChrisJ. Instagram is Vote Chris Jaramillo, Jaramillo. And I'm more than happy to connect with anyone who's either interested in helping out or interested in learning more, whatever the case may be. So.
Mm-hmm. And we'll put the link to your website and the Facebook page and Instagram in the YouTube description and the Facebook Live event later. So, and I just want to thank you again for joining us here. And for any young people watching or later rewatching it later, who might be interested in running a campaign, use Chris as a resource if possible. I'm sure he would be happy to answer any questions you have. And if you live in Norristown area and you want to know more, check out Chris's website and Facebook page. And again, thank you so much for joining us, Chris.
Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.
Take care.
Thank you.